One of the major problems facing the Department of Defense is taking acquisition innovation efforts and scaling them into programs of record. While the innovation efforts are promising, they will remain small without greater buy-in. The Defense Innovation Unit has just a $67 million budget for FY21. The SBIR STTR programs are just over $2 billion, and other transactions awards are roughly $10 billion. This pales in comparison to the $227 billion in formal acquisition programs and another $289 billion in operations and maintenance. Of course, there have been dozens of major commissions and studies on improving acquisition through statute and regulation. These incremental efforts have had an impact, but additional blue ribbon commissions are not what is needed going forward. Today, the main constraint isn't process flexibility, but workforce behavior. Rather than presuming to already know the proper behaviors, the Center will gather perspectives about what actually works from government and industry professionals through interviews. However, in order to structure the conversations, the Center will start with the framework of a paradigm shift from the industrial era to the information era. While commercial business practices have already made the change, think Agile, most defense business practices are substantially those that were developed in the 1950s and 60s, think requirements. The paradigm shift radically changed how commercial business and innovation is managed. Let's look at one way that the commercial sector has adapted to the paradigm shift and defense acquisition has not. Researchers found that more than 85% of company valuations were explained by tangible assets and earnings back in the 1950s. It's not surprising then that the DoD adopted cost accounting information as the basis for acquisition systems around that time. However, the relevance of accounting-based decisions declined in the commercial world, and in 2018 was estimated at just 13%. In other words, nearly all company value is not in physical capital, but in software, data, product design, branding, company culture, and so forth. Not in the current quarter's earnings, but in growth and adaptability. The DoD is late to this change, still evaluating companies and products in the same way they did in the 1950s. This is just one lens with which to view the paradigm shift. In addition to the resource example we just discussed, there are many other lenses such as product design, cost structure, and deployment. This framework is then used to derive a set of hypotheses about defense acquisition to structure the interviews. For example, the shift from industrial to information era implies a need to change how the DoD does contract requirements. The Center hypothesizes that requirements need to change from stable to iterative. Each hypothesis is accompanied by a standard table with brief explanations. There are currently 9 hypotheses that will be used to focus the interviews. The hope is to compile a set of successful behaviors that exemplify the core ideas in each of the hypotheses. To recap and expand, the Center will start with the framework of a paradigm shift from industrial to information era processes, which underpins a set of hypotheses about different elements of the contracting process. A short read-ahead will be provided in advance of interviews with professionals in the DoD, industry, and potentially Congress. The playbook outlining specific best practices will be developed and refined throughout the interview process. Programs that exemplify best practices will be further investigated with follow-up interviews to create case study vignettes. We will then finalize the playbook and a more detailed report which will be used to launch a marketing and outreach campaign. A potential follow-on effort is to receive top cover to run Pathfinder programs that implement the playbook's recommendations.